What I want to do day in and day out is I want to create an experience that meets customers' expectations consistently and predictably. What you want your customers to say is, and by the way, use the word customer. It could be guest, member, resident, patient. It doesn't matter. Client, doesn't matter. When you want the customer to say, I love doing business with them because they're always so quick to get back to me. They're always knowledgeable. They're always helpful. They're always friendly. The word always followed by something that should be natural. And then, of course, if there's a problem, I know I can always count on them. So that word always is the consistency and predictable part of it. And believe it or not, if you want to be seen as amazing, just do what people expect all the time. That's all you have to do.
Welcome to Becoming Radical, the podcast for creators, builders, and dreamers just like you. What does it mean to become radical in a world of constant change? Hosted by Michael Gaizutis, each week we'll explore the real-time journeys of those rewriting the rules. From untold failures to groundbreaking success. If you're ready to break the boundaries of limited thinking, this is your guide to unlimited growth.
Welcome to Becoming Radical. We are joined here today with Shep Hyken. Shep, it's great to have you here. Appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, to say this in the simplest form, because I know you do a lot of things, you're really a world-renowned customer experience expert, best-selling author, chief amazement officer of Shepard presentations. You've done a lot of things. I don't want to steal the show, but could you give a quick intro as to who you are and where you've been and where you are today?
Sure. So let's say you and I are sitting on an airplane and you say, hey, what do you do for a living?
Yeah.
And I'm going to respond with a question. Have you ever walked away from a business, hung up the phone, went out one night with friends, family, spouse, partner, whatever, and thought whatever company, type of business it was, you walked away and you said, wow, that was amazing. That's what I help my clients achieve.
Cool.
We work with them to build loyal relationships with their customers and their employees.
Amazing. You've made a career, from what I understand, of helping companies create those amazing customer experiences. Where did your passion for this begin? Where was the starting point of all of this?
That is a great question. And if you really want to go back to the very, very beginning, it was when I was about 12 years old. So I started dodoing magic tricks when I was 10, and I did my first birthday party magic show where I was paid at age 12. And my mom dropped me off after school. I came out. I was so happy. I got paid $16. That was a lot of money back then. I went home and my mom and dad, brother and sister were talking about the show. And my mom says, what are you going to do after dinner? And I thought the correct answer, because it was a school night, was homework. But I was wrong. She goes, not until you write a thank you note to these nice people who just paid you this incredible amount of money to do a 30-minute magic show. Sure, I thought that's what I should do, right? That's showing appreciation. My dad said, take it to the next level. Next week, call the parents who booked you and thank them again on the phone. And then ask them, how did you like the show? And when they start telling you what they thought of the show, ask them what tricks they liked the best. And when you do this enough times, you'll hear a lot of the same tricks. You'll also notice people won't talk about certain tricks. Get rid of the tricks they don't talk about and make the show better by putting tricks in that they will talk about. Every trick will be a trick worth talking about. So I thought, wow, that's really cool. Now, little did I know, we fast forward many years later and I'm starting to study my craft and I'm learning that's client appreciation. That's listening to the customer, voice of the customer program. I mean, it was one-on-one, but still I'm listening, I'm getting feedback, and then I'm operationalizing the feedback, and it turns out to be a better product or a better process. In this case, it was a better show. So from age 12 of doing magic shows for birthday parties, working in my first nightclub when I was 14, working at the Playboy Club when I was 16, corporate programs and comedy shows all the way through college, graduate college. Within a year, probably maybe 8 months, I figure out, what am I going to do? I'm going to do this. I saw a couple of motivational speakers. I can do that speech and I'll just incorporate the magic into it. And when I went to the bookstore to say, what am I going to talk about? I wanted to just read and see what business books were out there. I was drawn to all of the business on customer service and experience. In
Yeah.
1983, In Search of Excellence came out. I bought that
Oh,
book. I bought 2 books by Ron
wow.
Zemke and Carl Albrecht. And I went home with these 3
Mm.
books, read them cover to cover, and I
Mhm.
started writing my speech. I started talking about, and remember, I'm doing magic shows, so I had this idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to clients and their employees about how do you create that moment of magic for your
Yeah.
company? How do you avoid moments of misery?
Mm.
So that's where it all started. And that's how I kind of grew in. And I started my business, you figure it out, 1983. That's
Yeah.
42
42 years
years
ago. Yeah, I'm aware.
older
Yeah.
than you. Okay.
Same age. 42 years. Yeah. 42 years. I'm actually 42. So 1983, 42 years. That's how I did that quick math. I promise. It's incredible. It's a long time ago for sure. Yeah. A
It's
lot has
been fun,
changed.
no
Yeah.
doubt.
And I like that concept that you mentioned there, to avoid misery. Nobody loves misery when it comes to customer service, customer excellence. You want to avoid that at all costs and all turns. What does amazement actually mean to you in the context of customer service? If somebody were to sit down and ask you that question.
That's a favorite topic that I talk about. And I include the idea of creating amazement and the concept of moments of misery,
Mm,
mediocrity, which, by the way, is almost worse than misery,
right.
just being okay,
Oh yeah.
and moments of magic. I talk about that in virtually every speech. And if you were to hire me 5 years in a row, you
Yeah.
would get a short review of these concepts in
Hmm.
every presentation. So let's talk about amazement first. This is
Please,
important.
please.
It's not about over the top. It's not about blow me away with the most incredible over the top experience. You're going to have those moments. Those moments happen at special instances where
Yeah.
something goes wrong and you turn around and make it
Right.
right. Maybe you
Right.
overhear this. If you're a server, you hear the couple's there for their 10-year anniversary. You surprise them with a
Yeah.
cake or a little candle with a dessert or whatever. Those
Mhm.
are moments that you
Yeah.
can step up and do above and beyond. But
Yes.
what I want to do day in and day out is I want to create an experience that meets customers' expectations
Mm,
consistently and
yes.
predictably. What you want your customers to say is, and by
Hmm.
the way, use the word customer, it could be guest, member,
Yeah.
resident, patient, it doesn't matter, client, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, when you want the customer to say, I love doing business with them because they're always so quick to get back to me. They're always
Yeah.
knowledgeable. They're always helpful. They're always friendly. The word always followed by something that should be natural. And then,
Yeah.
of course, if there's a problem, I know I can always count on them. So that word
Mhm.
always is the
Yeah.
consistency and predictable part of it. And believe it or not, if you want to be seen as amazing, just do what people expect
Yeah.
all the time. That's all you have to
Yeah.
do. It's
That's
not that
it.
difficult.
Yeah.
I say that it's almost tongue in cheek. It is difficult to be
Yeah.
consistent like that because it is easy when you have a lot of employees for somebody to be
Mm,
having a bad day. And by the way, when that person has a bad day and they don't
mm,
perform at their optimal,
right.
abilities and the customer's let down for whatever reason it is,
Mm,
they have that impression of your entire company.
yeah.
And so we have to be so careful with how we make sure everybody understands what their role is. And that role is to take care of that customer and make
Yeah.
them say, in the words of my favorite Austrian philosopher, Arnold Schwarzenegger, he said,
Mm,
I'll be back. That's what we
yeah.
want our customers to say.
Yeah. He's incredible. He's a legend for sure. It's amazing. His work ethic is sort of amazing. I mean, it's just incredible. He to his core, he is so disciplined when it comes to exercise, when it comes to
Yeah.
business,
Still
when it comes
goes
to
to the
action.
gym. He's
Man.
lifting weights every day, chewing on a
Yeah.
cigar while he does it, but he's
Yeah.
lifting his weights.
Absolutely. He had I think multiple heart surgeries and he's still going. I mean, it's incredible. He's just so driven and so focused. And I think that consistency, that deliverability when it comes to amazing is what you're talking about. It's showing up, being consistent. If there is some inconsistency, to addressing that in that specific moment.
Yep.
It's fascinating. What are some of the most common mistakes you think companies make when they're trying to improve the root of customer service, customer excellence?
Great question. There's so many different answers I can give you, but let me give you just
Sure.
a few short ideas.
Please.
Number one is thinking that, hey, let's create this customer service initiative. And then they get all excited and they talk about what they're going to do. And maybe they have a day of
Yeah.
training and they expect
Yeah.
that this will last the rest of their lives. And it
Right.
doesn't. So,
Right.
customer service training or customer
Mhm.
experience or any type of training for that matter It isn't something you did, it's something you do. That needs to be ongoing.
Yeah.
I think that a big issue is to make a decision for this to happen, it needs to start at the top. Somebody, whoever it is, the CEO, the owner, the president of a company, needs to say, this is what I want. It needs to permeate all the way through. And as I mentioned, you've got to train everybody to it and constantly remind them what it's about. In my opinion, and I've been writing about this and including it in most of my books, customer service is not a department. Customer experience is not an initiative. It's really a philosophy that needs to be embraced by everybody. And I mean everybody, from the front line to the highest level executive to the people that were just hired to people in the warehouse, if you've got that kind of a business. Everybody needs to know their role and how they impact the experience. If you're not dealing directly with a customer, you're supporting somebody who is, or you're part of the process that makes it happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, it makes sense. And I think that, that core ethos applies to both, small bootstrap businesses, VC-backed startups, all the way to enterprise level. We think about the Amazons of the world, it becomes more and more relevant because there's every single possible touch point, from the person that delivers your package to the person in the warehouse to the person on some type of support role to the execs. So you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's fascinating. How do you help businesses? And this is a really key question, I think. How do you help business shift from being reactive to proactively customer centric?
Right. And so many people, and that's that customer support or service mentality of, people call, will take care of them and they'll be so impressed. Well, how about try to figure out a way for them not to call and have a problem, or not to write it, or not to email, or not to reach out if we start to do it right. You mentioned Amazon just a moment ago. Jeff Bezos said in a meeting one day, we should be, when they talked about customer service, it should be so good. The first executive VP of customer service worldwide for Amazon, I believe it's Bill Price. Anyway, Bill said, when he was asked, what's customer service? Bill said, no service. He goes, what do you mean? It means you would never need to call us because it's always right. So part of a job of the person who's in charge, we'll call it the chief customer officer, but I'd say all the way up to the very top, chief experience officer, what their job is to look at every interaction point and determine, is this a place where we can make it better? Is this a place where where we're seeing there's some friction, where we're hearing about it, where this is where customers are calling us with a problem? When we start to recognize these interaction points, how to eliminate the problems, how to make whatever interaction even better. I love it. I just saw, I've seen him a number of times. He wrote a great book. His name's Will Guidara. I believe it's called Unreasonable Hospitality. Now, in a restaurant business, we all go to restaurants. We've all had great food, bad food, good experiences, bad experiences. Well, this guy came from Union Square Hospitality. Another guy, Danny Meyer, who started that company, is very well known, wrote a book called Setting the Table. The guy's amazing. He's considered a restaurant, what's royalty? Restaurant royalty would be a good way to describe him. So Will worked for him and then goes out and opens his own restaurant. His goal was to be the number one restaurant in the world. And there's actually an organization that rates restaurants. And sure enough, he did it. He hit it took a number of years, but he nailed it. Now, this is what he did. This is what every company should do. It's what I've been talking about for years. Forget about it that it's the restaurant business. Your business is probably totally different. But if you think about every interaction that you have from the moment you walk into a restaurant, the way you're greeted, even let's go before that, you make a reservation. How is that experience? You're greeted when you walk in, the way you're taken to the table, the way you're addressed at the table, the first interaction you have with your server. All of these touch points are happening along the way. And what I tell my clients to do, as what Will did with his restaurant, is he looked at every touch point. He created that journey map of the different experiences customers have. And he said, how can I make it better? One of my favorite examples is when it's time to pay the bill and the server drops the check, how do you make that better? Well, he figured out a way to make it not only better, but so memorable, people look forward to getting their check because they know it's coming when they do get the check. It's going to be an experience.
What did he do? At the very end,
he basically ends the evening presenting the check, of course, but it's like, let's toast to what a wonderful evening we had. And he pours everybody a glass of champagne or a cordial or something like that, right?
Interesting.
And just makes it an experience not just something that every other restaurant, has. If you go to a
Exactly.
sit-down type restaurant, they
It's the
bring the
same
bill
thing.
and you pay it.
Exactly. I love that. I think that seamless integration into customer experience, regardless of industry, is so overlooked, so understated, but so absolutely radically relevant in today's day and age.
Yeah,
So
I
you
love
nailed
that
it.
word,
Yeah,
radically relevant, which is what you're all
radically
about.
relevant. Maybe it'll be a
Today,
new thing we'll launch. Yeah, I love that. Yeah,
I flew in from Washington, D.C. I was supposed
yeah,
to get here last night.
yeah.
My flight was canceled due to weather. No
Sure, of
fault of the airline whatsoever.
course.
I would say within 5 minutes of
Mm.
getting that cancellation notice, I was informed by the airline that I had been rebooked on the first flight tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
That happened
Yeah.
pretty
Oh,
got right?
wow.
Very, very impressive. So if
Yeah.
I was asked by the airline, what could we have done better? And,
Mm.
they gave every, I think it was 15, 30 minutes or so, I was receiving email
Sure,
updates or text
sure.
updates as to this is where your plane is at. We're
Yeah.
trying to figure out if the crew is going to be able to fly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And eventually,
Yep.
when it was canceled due to weather, which again, it's not their fault, I
Sure.
was immediately, I didn't have to make a phone call. I didn't have
Yeah.
to go stand in line. I was
Mm.
taken care of.
Yeah.
There's one thing they could have done better. And it's not like they didn't do anything wrong. They did nothing wrong. But I
Yeah.
always look at these situations.
Yeah.
There were a bunch of people on my flight this morning that were on the flight last night.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe there were probably 10 of them, 12 of them, 15. I don't know how many, but there
Sure.
were a few.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been a big deal for somebody to have given the flight attendant the list of those people. And they could
Mm.
have just come over and said, I'm so glad you're flying this morning. And we are so sorry about
Mm.
what happened. It
Yeah.
wasn't our fault that the weather did what it did, but I am so glad that we were able to get you where just some
Yeah.
interaction. Again, they did nothing wrong. I am always looking at what's there that's working and could we make it even better?
100%. Yeah. Well, and I think that's what really separates the truly radically different, radically exciting brands from those who are less exciting and more consistent, and maybe they still produce, but the top performers, the top brands, businesses, companies, teams that are really resonant, that are really driving that level of impact. If you look at, whether you love him or not, and what they've built as a business, as a brand, the Virgin brand, and their success.
I love the Virgin brand.
Yeah,
I have a
absolutely.
huge amount of my book,
Yeah.
Cult of the Customer, because I thought cult, he's like a cult. This
Yeah.
guy,
Yeah.
Richard Branson, he's
Yeah.
like,
That's it.
he's
Yeah.
amazing.
He
But I
is.
wrote the history of his
Yeah.
story and
Yes.
how come I respect what he does at the
100%.
highest level.
Yep.
By the way, not everything has been as successful as the more obvious things that we see, such as Virgin Airline.
Of course. Of course.
And I'm not even sure what his involvement is, if anything, at this point in that. But
Yeah.
boy, he built that with a purpose.
He
And it
did.
was to take on the
Yeah.
big guy.
Yep.
And his exact words were the larger airlines over, and he was in the UK, so it's British
Yeah.
Air. He
Of
says
course.
they give the customer the Mickey. Now that's like, I'm not sure how that
Yeah.
translates, other than it's not like they take advantage of him. It's just
Yeah.
don't treat him the right way, if you will.
Yeah.
So
Of course. Yeah.
he says we're going to make sure that everybody gets treated in a way that
Mhm.
people just love our airline and want to keep coming
Yeah.
back. Southwest Airlines are doing quite a bit to change the airline recently. I understand why they're doing it. I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
If Herb Kelleher, who started the airline, was still living, would never let this happen.
Yeah.
If he knew it was happening from wherever he is right now, he's rolling over in his grave. Okay?
100%.
But
Yeah.
they're known as an airline that was low cost, free
Yep.
bags,
Humorous.
humorous, great.
Yeah.
Somebody asked him, what's more important, the stakeholders, the
Mhm.
employees, or the passengers, the customer?
Yeah.
And he thought
Yeah.
about it, and he said, oh my gosh, let me tell you what I think. I think we take care of the employees first, because if we
Yeah.
do a good job and they're happy, they'll be
Yeah.
better with customers. And if those
Yeah.
customers love us, they'll fly on us again and again. And guess what? That's going to make the
Huh?
stakeholders happy.
That's it.
And he called it a conundrum. That's what it was, a conundrum, when he
Mm.
was first asked. Anyway, this conundrum isn't a conundrum all. It's exactly the way it works. It starts
Yeah.
on the inside with
Yep.
the culture that you build, the way you
Yes.
treat your people.
Yep.
I believe in the philosophy, you treat your people the way you want your customers treated, if not even
Mhm.
better, because you set the tone on the inside of an organization. And, if you do it right, people love coming to work. They'll go the extra mile to take care of the customer, to do what it takes, because they love where they are. They're their own brand ambassadors for your organization.
100%. They feel supercharged to lead the charge for the brand, for the business. And that becomes, it becomes very sticky when somebody loves what they do and they feel excited and passionate, that purpose follows, and then the customers get excited, and it's a trickle effect, compounded effect. 100%. It's amazing. As a kid, as a young child, I know we talked about locations. I grew up in Kansas City, and I very entrepreneurial, but I was mentored without being mentored by somebody who ran a jewelry business in Kansas City, on the plaza in Kansas City. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I know exactly where that is. Yeah.
Very popular spot. Very, been there for a long time. So he ran this very unique jewelry business. And he was, I believe, I think he was Hungarian, if I'm not mistaken. And he ran this amazing jewelry business. He had his own opal mines, and opal, very cool gemstone. And he'd make all these beautiful rings and necklaces. But when people would come in, he would, in the most charming way possible, compliment any females in the surrounding that would come in trying to look for jewelry. If they were with their husband or their boyfriend and they had a family, he would do it in a way that was very approachable, very graceful, very charming, as I said, but in a way that also supercharged their spouse, because he, in complimenting them with that level of customer excellence that he would bring forward. And he did this, and he trained his staff to do the same thing. Whole point is, the trickle effect was huge, and the impact he was making to somebody like me who would observe this over and over and over again, it makes you realize how far customer excellence goes, and how it's so visible from the moment somebody walks into retail to the time they check out, to the time they come back. And he would give away free gemstones. So even if you didn't buy, he would give away, as part of his experience, the gemstones from his opal mine. He would want you to enjoy the entire experience of what he saw in mine to what you saw as a final product. He would offer wine. He would compliment. There was this whole process. This was the most brilliant person I have ever seen in a retail environment. And to this day, and oddly enough, just to kind of close this loop, years go by, I ended up in the Bay Area. This is before starting a new business myself. I ended up working with his daughter, and I didn't realize it was his daughter. And I shared that story, and she said, "That's my dad." So the whole point is, it goes round and round, but the level of customer excellence is so overlooked and undervalued, just as you said. And I guess, tracking back to a question, if you think about a company today, a modern company.
Oh, I was going to tell you, this is the point. It started at the top. This guy was from, he's the guy that runs it. By the way, how many of us have an opal mine? I mean, that's pretty cool.
Right.
But aside from that,
exactly, right.
you witness the owner, the CEO, the guy in charge doing it all, doing it right.
100%.
And guess what? That's the way it works. Walt Disney used to talk about stooping to excellence. He would go into the theme park when he was alive, and he would see a piece of paper on the ground. He'd stoop down, pick it up, and throw it away. And he said, if I walked by that paper, I gave permission for everyone else to do it. But I show them what's expected. They need to see a leader doing what he or she expects the employees to do.
100%. If you think about modern day companies today, they look different, they feel different, they're chasing different things. I mean, you have VC-backed startups to mid-market companies to enterprise brands, and those in between, even if you're a bootstrap business. What is one small change a modern company could make tomorrow to improve bigger picture customer loyalty, customer experience?
So, great question. I'm going to give you several answers again. Number one is recognize it is cultural, so it starts at the top. Number two, training. I already talked about that. You train every employee. They understand that. Most importantly, and I talked a little bit about this as well, you want to create that journey map, those interaction points. When you start to identify the interaction points, and I mean every one of them, you look for opportunities. I also want everybody to sit down with their teams, and ideally we can get information from all teams and put it together eventually with a committee, if you will, of a group that represents somebody from different areas of the company. What do you hear that doesn't work? And I'm not just talking about customers calling in and complaining. What are employees saying that, boy, why do we have to do this? This
Yeah.
is the most ridiculous process that we have to do.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at every one of these and then
Yeah.
let's list them out and let's take 3 or 4, call it the low hanging fruit, the ones that are at the
Yep.
top that are the easiest to maybe start the change, maybe a couple that have the biggest impact, and take your time. And over time, you'll start to fix these issues. So
Yeah.
we have this, I call it the moment of misery exercise, where we have everybody sit down with their teams. And I love when
Yeah.
they interact and they're not all on the same team even.
Oh,
So
yeah.
what are you hearing? What are the big complaints, either
Mhm.
inside the company or outside the company? Let's
Yes.
catch, how often do they happen? And
Sure.
let's kind of brainstorm different solutions.
Yep.
And you do this and you create this list, as I just mentioned. And once you do it, you're not finished. You come back and you look at everything all over again 6 months later. So
Yeah.
it's never ending. You don't ever
Right.
assume that once you've done it, it's done. No,
Yeah.
you're always moving forward. If you're not moving forward, there's going to be a competitor that figures it out that's going to get in
Of
front of
course.
you. And then you're going to be
Right.
playing catch up to try to keep up with somebody.
Right.
Or you're playing catch up to try to get back the market share and the customers that you lost.
Yeah, not great. 100%. Oh, I agree. I want to segue into this because I know we want to be mindful of our time today, and I want to get the most out of this conversation for our listeners, for our viewers. This is great. It's packed with so much information. How do you think AI is impacting what we see in the customer experience landscape today? Where does that fit in from your perspective? I know a lot's happening. It's changing really fast, for better or worse, because there's a lot of for better and worse.
Yeah.
It's a scale and it's going up and down. What do you see happening there?
Well, sure. Number one, it's getting so much better than it used to be.
Yeah.
And the problem that people have with AI is not what's happening today in AI, it's what they experienced last year and the year before. And I mean it, just a year or two ago, where
Yeah.
it wasn't as good as today. It's so much better. So there's a couple of things we need to know about. I do
Yeah.
annual research every year, and I ask thousands of consumers questions. And by the way, it's a very it's what I match the U.S. Census for age, gender, geography, ethnicity. So it really is a picture of what the U.S. is. And here's what we learned: when it comes to customer support, customer service, how do you like to reach out to a company? Would you rather go digital, self-service, do it yourself, or would you rather pick up the phone?
Yep.
7 out of 10, 68% this year said, I want the phone.
Really?
With all the AI and all the advancements that we've made.
right.
And here's what's interesting. Of that number, 81% of those are baby boomers. So the older generation is the one that wants the phone.
Interesting.
51% Gen Z. Those are the ones saying that. Now, here's where it gets interesting.
Wow.
And I'm going to quote from my stats. 63% of customers expect AI technologies to become the primary mode of customer service in the future. But here's something else that's important. I think if the short version of this is, there's a percentage of customers, about 30 some odd percent, that if you don't offer the self-service option, you have to, even if they don't use it, they want to know it's there. If you don't offer it, they're not going to do business with you.
Right.
So,
right.
And by the way, it's so inexpensive. What 10 years ago would have cost $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 is now, $30, $40 a month on a subscription per person, per user in your company who's taking care of a customer, to be able to give them AI support. And by the way, you don't just support the customer, you can also support employees. If you know how to prompt the machine properly as an employee, when a customer asks you a question, you can get great answers. Even better is when the machine's just listening and giving you answers without you having to even prompt.
That's
so
right.
It's really amazing what it can do today. Now,
fascinating.
I've got 2 articles coming out this month. One is, even though AI can do it, it doesn't mean it should.
Right.
The follow-up article a week later is, even though humans do it, doesn't mean they should.
That's right. That's true. You're absolutely right. No, and it's a fair point. And I have a couple things to say about it, but I do have a question. Do you think automation and personalization can really coexist, talking about that balance between AI and technology and the human component? And if so, what's the best way to do it? How can it be done?
Well, if you're talking about personalization at scale, that's what AI can help you do. Let's talk about the human-to-human interaction. You're talking to me. As soon as I know who you are, the computer knows who you are too. The computer can start feeding me information about you so that I could say, hey, I see that the last time you called, it was about this. Is that what you're calling about now? So I'm personalizing the experience, not because I know who you are personally. It's because my company, my machine, we know who you are. And we're going to treat you as if we do know who you are. Now, micro personalization is when you walk into a hotel, I can see, oh, welcome back. Would you like to stay in the same room you were in the last time? Okay. That's a little bit more of I call micro personalization. Macro or scaling would be when Chewy.com, the dog food company, that delivers, knows that there is a tornado that hits St. Louis, and it emails all of their St. Louis customers and says, and asks, how's your dog? By the way, they have the name of the dog, so it's mail merge, right? How's the dog, Fido? How's the dog? How's your little cat? And by the way, we know you're in the zip code that was hit hardest. Do you need us to postpone your delivery? Do you need us to send it to a different address? People are going, wow, or let me send you a little treat because I know you're going to, and they just send a little, box of dog biscuits or something. This is what great companies are doing with AI, scaling it for personalization.
100%. It's amazing because when you talked about the balance between human and automation and AI and everything that's happening, on the other side of my life, we run a digital agency. We work with companies, VC-backed startups, enterprise level, all in between, teams all over the world. We actually recently changed our way of operating to answer calls to being human-led, whereas before it was all automated. Because what we're finding is that people do, in select cases, want to reach a human. Even if we're an agency and we're operating in a very different format to, a typical, hey, I'm calling DirecTV or AT&T or Verizon, it's still very important to reach somebody if you want to, but then you provide option sets. You have automations. You have calendar functionalities, you have emails, because depending on the actual persona of who we're trying to reach, we want to enable all of them in their journey, in their customer journey. So it's really important. I think you're spot on and I love it. I want to be mindful of our time here, but I just have a couple more quick questions. So, we like to talk about something that we're bringing to life soon is this idea of being radical in real time, right? So what's a new concept or trend you're exploring right now in the world of customer experience that you think is up and coming or more relevant to where we're headed as this duality between automation, personalization, and customer experience?
So first, I'm going to tell you nothing has changed. So there's nothing new that's coming. At the end of whatever the interaction is, the customer wants to be happy. Done.
Right.
That'll be the same 1,000 years from now as it was 1,000 years ago.
That's right.
The way we go about it, we've already been talking about it. It's using that automation. So I think that you're going to see a really interesting future when it comes to customer experience. You're going to see people recognizing how important it is to become customer focused. The companies that are going to really survive are the ones that are able to say, we're going to give you all the digital automation, AI type of support and experience you want. But guess what? We're human too. And we're going to make sure there's a human element so that we don't become commoditized with all the other companies that are just trying to, get ahead with technology. So find your balance, whatever it is, and find a way to remain human to the customer. Very few companies can get away with what Amazon has done to create an almost totally digital experience. They did it because they were early on pioneers of this, and they did it and created a system that created such confidence that the customer had that it was always going to be right. Just the other day, I ordered something that was supposed to be there the next day. I received numerous emails. We are so sorry. There's going to be a delay. You can cancel and buy it from somewhere else, or just hold on. And I was like, wow. And when it does show up, there's a picture of it sitting next to my, door. It's here.
Of course. It's there. Incredible. Yeah. They've mastered the art.
Companies can get away going 100% digital. So find your balance and don't fall into the commodity trap.
It's good. I like that a lot. We talked about a lot around customer experience, good, bad experiences, good experiences. I guess one of the last questions I have for you, because we could go on for hours, but what is one thing you really wish that more CEOs understood about customer service, customer excellence?
One of the greatest answers I ever had in an interview was when I asked a high-level CEO, what do you really do here? Make deals. What's your job? His exact words were this: I defend the culture. That is the most important thing I do.
Yeah.
At the top, you set the tone for what your company's about. You find out what your North Star is, and you go after it, and you make sure everybody follows you along the way.
Yeah, brilliant. I love that answer. It's great. And it really encapsulates this whole idea of, a top down, but equally a very mission, vision driven, customer experience centric philosophy and ethos as a modern brand. So you nailed it. It's great. Where can
Thank
everybody
you.
find you? You're everywhere. Where can they find
I'm
you?
everywhere. Just go to hyken.com, hyken.com. Subscribe to my blog. It's free. Check out my research. It's free. Go to YouTube, put in, sheptv.com. I've got, 1,300 videos up there. Everything I talk about everything I charge for is free if you really look for it.
Yeah, that's right. There you go. You get a lot of value-packed information for nothing, and just time spent really absorbing a lot of great things. And speaking of great things, this has been an amazing time with you today. We appreciate it. You're definitely becoming radical. You're changing the game. You're transforming the industry with all your experience sets, and you're making it more experience-driven every step of the way. So we appreciate you being here. Excited to have you back in the future. This will all be in our show notes based on everything we talked about today, and we'll keep cheering you on every step of the way.
Well, thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Becoming Radical. If today's episode sparked something in you, follow wherever you listen, join the conversation, and share it with someone ready to think beyond limits. Be unlimited, be bold, and become radical. See you next time.